Good Friday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope your weekend's off to a great start. Thanks for joining us. Browns about 5 weeks away. That's all. 5 weeks away from training camp, getting rolling down in Greenbrier, West Virginia. Let's take a listen to Pro Football Focus NFL show. Top 5 on the hot seat in the entire NFL heading into the 2023 season. One of them, number 2, is somebody with the Browns.
Andrew Berry, Cleveland Browns general manager. I mean, presumably he's the guy that at the very minimum signed off, if not was the driving force behind this decision a year ago to go all in for Deshaun Watson. And by all in, I mean,
I think he has to physically sign off on it, right? I mean, he probably actually has to sign off on the deal, but yes.
I mean, we can debate how much that was driven by ownership and how much of it was Andrew Berry's, brainchild or whatever, but he's the guy, you're right, he's the guy whose name is on the sheet, and more importantly, he's the guy whose future is going to be tied to it. Like, if it screws up, ownership doesn't fire itself. Ownership is firing somebody, and the somebody they're firing is the general manager. So Andrew Berry is the guy that went and made that deal happen. And, okay, not only it would be the kind of thing that would expose a general manager's job to risk if it was a normal quarterback. And by that I mean one that didn't come with baggage. If it was just what they gave up to make it happen, if it was just the precedent-setting, precedent-breaking, fully guaranteed 5-year contract, and it didn't work out, it would be catastrophic. When you factor in the allegations and legal issues around Deshaun Watson and the sexual misconduct stuff, now it's a whole other world and an additional layer of pressure as well.
And again, there's none of that is really up for debate. Again, that's Pro Football Focus. I think Sam Monson does a great job. Let's welcome in G. Bush, 92.3 The Fan, as well as the Barbershop. G. Bush, I get the thought process. I like Sam Monson. I like Pro Football Focus. There aren't very many guys who have been to 3 Pro Bowls, who are 27 years old, who you can get under contract for 5 years heading into the prime of their career, who become available. And when you look at what Andrew Berry has done, if things do go south, I don't know that he's the one that's gonna take the heat.
Nah, listen, you got a situation where we talked about this before. When you're looking at what Andrew Berry did, Andrew Berry took himself from obscurity to now having a quarterback that can possibly lead you to the playoffs or even the Super Bowl if he gets back to where he wants to be at. Take a look at what they had with Baker Mayfield. They had a quarterback that was marginal at best. They were nowhere near in the conversation of competing for championships. And they had the worst roster in terms of some of the worst skill positions of the guys that in the division. So you look at where they finished last year. Of course, they had the 6 games. The thing that always gets me about when people talk about some of the allegations and some of the other different things, when you are a Fortune 500 company, when you are a big company, whether whether you're a football organization, whether you're talk about basketball, baseball, or we're just talking about oil, gas, anything, you're going to have to make some decisions sometimes that are not going to be very popular. And Fortune 500 companies do that all the time. We talk about some of the things that you have to do and to be able to swallow to get into the game and to be successful. One of the reasons that you look at the Deshaun Watson deal and people say it was unprecedented. At the end of the day, business people who operate at that high level, everything is unprecedented. It was unprecedented for a little bit, but then you turn around, Jalen Hurts got more money. And by the way, Jalen Hurts didn't come with think about how he got there. Think about how they won a championship with a backup quarterback in Nick Foles. They had just went and got Carson Wentz at the number 2 overall pick. And guess what? They went and drafted a guy, Jalen Hurts, in the 2nd round. And they could have went out and got other receivers. They could have went out and got other things. Take a look at what's happening with the Jets. Do you think the Jets didn't roll the dice in terms of getting ready to go get a franchise quarterback and a Hall of Famer, Aaron Rodgers? You don't think that, all these other teams are rolling the dice. Sometimes you roll them and you come up with Kyler Murray. Sometimes you roll them and you come out with Jalen Hurts. Sometimes you're rolling them. You don't know if you're going to take another hit like Tua. and be able to play. At the end of the day, that is the high risk, high reward that we're talking about here. And to be truthful, if you ask Andrew Berry, if you ask Kevin Stefanski, if you ask D and Jimmy Haslam, would they rather be in a position without Deshaun Watson starting this season or with Deshaun Watson starting this season and the weapons and roster put around him? I think all four of them will raise their hand and say, unequivocally, we are all in on Deshaun Watson and what it can mean for the organization. So, you know, and by the way, like you said, you're a brilliant point you brought up. I don't think Kevin Stefanski, I don't think Andrew Berry is the next guy up. The next guy on the block is Kevin Stefanski. Mm-hmm. That's the hierarchy right there. It was Baker. When Baker didn't get it done, Kevin Stefanski had an opportunity to say, hold on, I was coach of the year. I won a playoff game. I get to choose my quarterback.
Yep.
I get to choose a quarterback. So they were like, okay, we'll get that for you. So when you're looking at it, I think Stefanski's on the block. Then it goes to Berry. But I think they'll have a pretty good season, and you might not even have to worry about that.
Nope. You have a good season. You win another playoff game. You make a run to the AFC. You know, if you're a contender in the AFC, you're talking about extending your head coach and making sure they're here for a while. All right. What are reasonable expectations for Deshaun Watson? And maybe even more importantly, what do we need from Deshaun Watson this year if we're going to get where we want to go, which is deep in the AFC playoffs?
You know, I'm telling you like this. I put numbers on it. Some things that I think what we've just been browbeat so much that we're almost as fans and as the media, we're holding our breath. We're not even supposed to think Deshaun Watson is going to be good anymore. But I just challenge people to go back and take a look at the situation. I talked to Bucky Brooks the other day, and Bucky Brooks at the NFL Network said, hey, listen, G. Bush, at one point in time, you look at Deshaun Watson, he was mentioned in the same capacity as Patrick Mahomes. Now, obviously, Patrick Mahomes has put some distance between him and everybody else on the planet Earth. But at the end of the day, if you can get that type of production, if you can get that type of a game from a guy like Deshaun Watson, I'm looking at, I'm putting numbers on it. I need to see 46, 47, 4,800. People say, "Oh my gosh, G. Bush, that's just so many numbers. We can't do that with Deshaun Watson. Why can't we?" He was doing that with a worse offensive line. He was doing that with a less weapons at receiver and tight end, and he was doing that without one of the best running backs in the game. When you telling me you got Amari Cooper, you got Elijah Moore, you got the best running back in the league in Nick Chubb, a very good offensive line, a vertical threat in the tight end, and David Njoku, and you got all of these weapons, not to mention your defense is going to be much improved giving the ball back to this offense. I need to see 45, 46, 4,700 yards, and I would like to see upwards of 38, 39, 40 touchdowns. People say that's 2 touchdowns a game. Well, look, hey, we say 250 all the time. Well, listen, I 250 million, I need to be getting 2 touchdowns from a guy like that. And I think it's healthy to start putting those expectations on Deshaun Watson because he is a superstar. We don't need Baker Mayfield 3,700 yards. That's pedestrian. If we want to get where we want to go, especially with Lamar Jackson and all of these other quarterbacks in the league, and not to mention Joe Burrow, and we start off with 3 games in the division, under no circumstances do we need to be thinking about 3,500 and managing expectations. We need to be ready to go today. And I think what you've seen in the offseason is a Deshaun Watson that is starting to feel more and more like his old self, which is dangerous for everybody else.
Yeah, what I want to see is I want to see the guy that you feel comfortable with. Fourth quarter, couple minutes in the game, I feel comfortable my guy's going to drive the ball down the field and beat you. That's what I want to see from Deshaun Watson above everything else, and I think he can deliver that. Patrick Mahomes, if you're playing the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes has the ball in the fourth quarter, you're like, man, don't give him the ball.
Scared.
That you want opponents to feel that way about Deshaun Watson. This is interesting as well. CBS Sports, best move by each AFC team. For the Browns, they say trading for Elijah Moore. It gives Deshaun Watson a target and a guy that's going to be a guy that can turn short passes into big plays. You know, they mentioned Zadarius Smith. That's the one that I kind of view Zadarius Smith as the Elijah Moore of the offense. Elijah Moore is going to make Deshaun Watson better. I think Zadarius Smith is going to make Myles Garrett better. And think about how scary that is. That's a guy that's been pretty good. You put somebody next to him that's going to make him better, good luck.
And this is it. This is why I love it. See, we've been kind of, I guess, poo-pooed a little bit. They're like, oh, it's just the Cleveland Browns. They've been nice the last couple of years. They haven't lived up to their expectations. It's the Browns. They'll Browns this thing up. Let me tell you what. Dalvin Tomlinson and Zadarius Smith can play with anybody in this league. And I think people don't understand how good those guys are. Zadarius Smith, you go back and watch this guy, for the first half of the season, he was unblockable. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. They won 13 games last year, boys and girls. 13. Now, you got two of their best defensive linemen coming here to match with Myles Garrett, who, by the way, we keep asking for Myles Garrett. There's this thing in the league and around and in Cleveland where we tell people, oh, Myles Garrett, he can give us more. He probably can. But there's only one guy who had more sacks than Myles Garrett this year, 16. Hey, if you like all these guys, you got Micah Parsons, he had 13. You like TJ Watt, Myles Garrett's grade is in the 95, 92, 93, 94, 95 when it comes to pass rush. TJ Watson's not there. His is in the 80s, 82, 83. When you talk about consistently as a guy who is already the best pass rusher you've ever had. Let's let that sink in. No disrespect to we have here before. Myles Garrett gets all the flack in the world, and just think about it. He's already the best defensive player that the Browns have ever had, in my opinion, and it's really probably not even close. Now, when could you say you're sitting here watching a guy in his prime still add on to those numbers, still giving you double-digit sacks? Well, this year you're going to find out because Zadarius Smith is the best player opposite of Myles Garrett because this guy has defensive player aspirations. He's a guy that wants to win Defensive Player of the Year. A lot of these other guys want to come be Batman and Robin. No. Zadarius Smith feels like he's one of the best pass rushers in the league. That's just not on the team. So you take a look at what they have defensively. They've catapulted themselves from a team where their defensive line was a laughingstock to a team where you probably won't be able to find much better fronts than what the Browns are going to offer and trot out there. And now they have depth, and now they have Jim Schwartz, who's going to play more aggressively. I just think overall, people are going to, about week 3 or 4, they'll start to catch on. Like, wow, we talked about Deshaun Watson and Elijah Moore. But let me tell you about this Browns defense. They get after it. They're nasty. They take the football away. And good luck getting around them 4 guys up front.
Yeah, that defensive line is definitely set to be a factor without question. G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, how important is Deshaun Watson to the Browns' success? Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with G. Bush from 92.3 The Fans, the Barber Shop, Saturday mornings, as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. All right, this from the Pro Football Focus NFL show again. How important is Deshaun Watson to the Cleveland Browns' success this year?
Deshaun Watson was pretty disastrous when he came back last year. Mm-hmm. If he stinks again this year, I mean, that's an absolute catastrophe for that team, and I would imagine can only possibly end in the end of Andrew Berry's tenure.
Yeah. I feel like I have been saying the Browns are one of the best rosters on paper in the NFL for the last 2 or 3 seasons, right? And when you look at since Andrew Berry has become the general manager, that's 2020. And to be fair, like Mayfield was still his quarterback at that point in time, right? Mayfield would be there for the 2020 season, which is the first year of Stefanski. They made the playoffs, but They made it as an 11-5 team. The following year, they go 8-9. That was Mayfield's last year. And then last year, they go 7-10. I do agree with you. And it's a tough year to have a lot of pressure on you in the AFC, right? And I think specifically in the AFC North.
And G. Bush, that is a fair point. But again, I love PFF, but I go back to, if you've assembled the best roster the last couple of years, that's the job of the GM. If you're not getting the results, that usually falls to the coach.
Yeah. You assemble a staff that is supposed to make the ingredients and to, so to speak, make the meal. Kevin Stefanski is in charge of calling the plays. He's in charge of what the best position to make guys better. He chose to keep Mike Prefer and Joe Woods a year too late, in my opinion. Those guys could have been gone the year prior to that. To me, I look at it for an example of, yes, if you're sitting here saying, hey, the Browns have one of the best rosters we've seen for the last 2 or 3 years in the whole entire league on paper, then the general manager has done his job. He's giving you talent. He's giving you playmakers. He's giving you a solid roster. It's up to the coaches and the players to go out there and get it done. I will say this too. I think a lot of players, and this is just so funny for me. Aaron Rodgers did win back-to-back MVPs, but he's by no stretch of the imagination coming off of any sort of world beater year with the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Like, we go back and look at some of these teams. I wasn't very high on Trevor Lawrence after the year he had with Urban Meyer. There's a lot of years where, hey, Kenny Pickett, I don't know what Kenny Pickett's going to be. Like, he showed some stuff, but he didn't show nothing crazy. The fact that people are extrapolating out of the 6 games where Deshaun Watson looked bad when he didn't do anything but sit on the couch and eat chips like me for a whole year, I'm confused how that sample size is just so dramatic. Like, people, like, he didn't even play in the preseason. He just showed back up. They wouldn't let him practice. He was not allowed in the building. They did not have a offense. And then now talk about being a quarterback with rhythm and timing and getting to know people, and they just throw you in. I don't know anybody that can do that. Listen, Tom Brady. If Tom Brady came out of retirement halfway through the season, what are you going to get? I don't know. I mean, it's a thing where it's almost, they act like that 6 games was 2.5 years. Like right. They act like the 6 games was like, hey, he played a whole season last year and he was just terrible. Granted, he didn't look great, but at the end of the day, I think they're greatly over-exaggerating that, which is fine. Yeah. It lends to the Cleveland Browns going under the radar, and you'll see what it is. But everything comes out in the wash. But at the end of the day, I think the 6 games people are really leaning kind of hard on, and I think they could do a better job of kind of being like, okay, well, let's see what he does this year, because this year is where his mark is going to be made.
And part of his strength is he processes information really well in the offense. So he was in a new offense, new players, didn't have the ability to practice with them for a lot. So there's a number of things that were set up against him being productive in those 6 games that were against what he does really well. But you're right. We'll find out. This is very interesting. Pro Football Focus ranking the defensive lines. So Eagles 1, 49ers 2, Commanders 3, Dolphins 4, Steelers 5, the Browns up to number 6. And you see one of the best, if not the best, edge defenders in the league in Myles Garrett. And they mentioned Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, Okoronkwo. When you think about how bad, and the Browns' defensive line last year was really bad, for them to be up to 6th shows you just how well they had the plan and executed the plan in the offseason.
I like them a lot better than some of them teams. I ain't got a problem with the Eagles.
Right.
But, I mean, the Steelers been living on name for years. I love Hayward. Listen, I love Hayward. I love him in the middle. He's strong nose. I like him. I like what they do up front, but let's be clear. I mean, T.J. Watt missed how many games? What, 5-6 games last year? I don't know how many games he played. But, you can't tell me if you got two of the best edge defenders and you probably got the best defensive tackle in free agency, and then you got Aranco is on the other end, and he's one of the surprising moves that you had. I guess if you want to put us at 6, I'll take it, because look, they were terrible last year. Jordan Elliott was all-time bad. Tommy Togiai was all-time bad. Taven Bryan, all-time bad. I mean, could not get off blocks, could not get off the run block, could not make plays in the backfield. They were atrocious. So I'll give it to them. If you want to move us from last to 6, I think I'd still like the Browns a little better. But once again, you got to go out and prove it. But I think on paper, it starts with the 2 edge rushers outside. And that's one really, really, really good tandem that you can start with Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith.
Yeah, and you're going to have a different style of defense with Jim Schwartz without question. All right. Who's somebody you think could have a breakout season for the Browns as you look at 2023?
To me, I could go easy and go with the receiving group. To be truthful, I think that it would not surprise me if either Elijah Moore or Donovan Peoples-Jones led the team in receiving. Like, I think it'd be that close. I think when you got a guy like Amari Cooper, he'll have over 1,000 yards, but I think Elijah Moore could easily have over 1,000 yards, and I think DPJ could as well. If the Browns are throwing the ball, at the pace that they think that they might throw the ball, you'll see 3 guys who might be able to get 3,000 yards. But I'm gonna take a guy that I think is really that people are a little bit down on, is JOK. I think JOK is going to have a really, really good season. I like the fact that DeQuell Jackson has been working with the linebackers in an unofficial role. I like that. I like them bringing him on for young linebackers. And I like what I like the most is the fact that I think Jim Schwartz is going to play his guys into what their strengths are. I think when you go back and watch, and we talked to Greg Newsome, and Greg Newsome talked about how playing corner under Joe Woods, when he was playing nickel, he was pretty much a guy that was a guy that was in the run fit. If you play nickel corner, you're going to need to be playing a run. You're going to be able to have leverage. You're going to have to make tackles. Now, Greg Newsome is not the biggest guy in the world. Obviously, you're looking at it. You don't want to have a scheme where Greg Newsome is dependent on in the run game 40, 50 times in the game. Now, that is switched. We talked to Greg. He said Jim Schwartz has switched up a lot of the different things that he talked about. But I think JOK, he'll use him in some of those ways as well. And I mean by he's that fast, he's that athletic. I don't think you can line up a guy like JOK and have him going against guards. Use his athleticism. Use him on blitzing. Use him as a disruptor. When you watch guys like Troy Polamalu, not saying that Troy Polamalu is JOK, but when you watch Troy Polamalu, they had him all over the field. You never knew where he was. He'd be 30 yards downfield covering, then he's blitzing, then he's at the line of scrimmage, then he's coming off the edge. Use his athleticism as something as an advantage rather than a liability with being his size and taking on guards and tackles and being in the run fits. I think Jim Schwartz is going to use that. I think he's going to use his quickness, and I think you'll see what JOK is able to do when you get creative enough and you decide to use him in those different specific aspects.
I'm with you. Jim Schwartz is going to find matchups that he likes week to week, and he's going to continue to have guys beat that matchup repeatedly. That's kind of what his defenses do. G. Bush, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, G. Bush.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, G. Bush, make sure you check him out Saturdays from 8 until noon, 92.3 The Fan, The Barbershop. You can also catch him 11 to 1 Monday through Friday on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, a film analysis on how Jim Schwartz and this Browns defense will look. We'll look back at the 2017 Eagles to get an idea of it. Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Straight ahead. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns. We've talked a lot about the Browns defense, how it will be different under Jim Schwartz. An interesting idea. So let's take a look at what Jim Schwartz defense is supposed to look like. We do that by taking a look at the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles defense that won a Super Bowl. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Lance, I'll give credit where credit was due. This was your idea to kind of take a look at how the Browns defense might fit into Jim Schwartz's scheme. I think it's a great idea. When you look at that 2017 defense, what did you see?
Well, you're going to see a very simple defense. I know you and I have talked about it a bunch in terms of getting lined up and playing forward. There's not a lot of schematic issues with formation, down and distance. They're going to get down a set. Two things really stuck out to me. One is they play with their hair on fire. They are upfield, and they're upfield some more. So they're not waiting for anything. They all play with a tremendous amount of energy. When he said it's very high school related, it's that idea of getting down and set and just getting off the ball and causing havoc in the backfield, whether it be a pass rush, stopping the run. You know, I like to say they pass rush to stop the run. They just get upfield, they throw guards off, they throw blocking schemes off. And then the other thing they do is they play with an edge. And what I mean by that is there's an attitude. There's a definite mean streak. And when you watch their defense from 2017, Schwartz's defense, something I think the Browns need to really take a look at. There's a definite meanness. There's a definite sense of urgency. When you watch them, it's really fun to watch as a coach because they are absolutely flying around all over the place.
All right, let's take a look at some of the video clips that go along with this. So Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, take us through what you see here.
So this is going to be a simple one. This is a wide 5, wide 3, wide 5, wide 9, obviously, if there's a tight end. And this is going to be at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see Graham at the 5, and you're going to see Fletcher Cox at the 3, and they're going to be in that B gap and that C gap. And they're just gonna get upfield and they're gonna win their one-on-one pressures. But this is what Schwartz does so well. What he does well is he takes Timmy Jernigan, the backside defensive tackle, which would be Dalvin Tomlinson, who's even a better player than Timmy Jernigan, and he's gonna shade him on the center. Now in this pass protection scheme, it's gonna force the center and the left guard to stay on Timmy Jernigan, which in the Browns defense would be Dalvin Tomlinson, and it's gonna create a one-on-one matchup for that 3 technique, which will be Smith, Myles Garrett, or that 5 technique, which again will be Oko Rankbo. It could be Myles Garrett. It could be Smith. It could be a number of guys. But what he's doing here by simply, covering that center, he's forcing the center to stay there and creating those matchups. And this is a classic, really simple scheme that creates a one-on-one matchup. It's hard to block.
The other thing is there's no reading or reacting. It's get after it, and that gives the defense a personality without question. This next one is important. Graham setting the edge. Take us through how important this is, what you see with this.
Well, see, the Eagles even set the edge a little bit differently than a lot of teams. If you look at Graham, he's going to be on the ground on the left there, number 55. He's a defensive end driving number 72 back in the back, 73 back in the left tackle back into the backfield. And what they do is they pass rush to stop the run. So he's actually going to take that tackle and he's just going to drive him straight back. And by driving him straight back, it doesn't allow the fullback to get around where he wants to get to. The tight end loses his block. If you see their entire defense, they're all moving forward at the snap of the ball. Occasionally, they will give a big run or a big pass because they are so aggressive. But at 17, they were fourth against the run, fourth against the pass. They were number one overall against the run. And so the reason they're so good against the run is because they win on first down. But again, it's not taking on double teams the traditional way. This Jim Schwartz defense is get down and set and play forward and play fast and play mean. I think the Browns defenders are going to love it.
Yeah, they used to refer to that as pushing the line of scrimmage back. So that's kind of his mindset. Just get after it, reestablish the line of scrimmage a yard and a half behind where it normally is.
Absolutely. So recreating a line of scrimmage is a great way to say it. So on the snap of the ball, they want to be a yard deep in the backfield before they do anything. They're going to stress get off, so they're going to stress getting off the ball, getting into their linemen, get whoever their responsibility is. And the thing about Jim Schwartz defense is that not only does it, he always says, and I don't think he gives himself enough credit. He always gives credit to his players, but it's the high school mentality of getting off the football and being super aggressive with a lot of technique and a lot of coaching in there. So they know where they're supposed to be. They know what gap they have. They know what gap responsibility. The linebackers all have run fits, but the linebackers now have run fits. They're running downhill to the run fits. They're not waiting for the double. They're anticipating the double, and they're downhill. So these defensive linemen get set. They don't have a lot to worry about. They can beat the double teams. They can beat the backside guards. They can beat the block backs. They can just get upfield and use their athletic ability. And the Browns defensive front, this new defensive front, they got some guys that can really fit this scheme.
Yeah, and so here in the run, in a run stop, we talk, and I didn't look down at your notes to me. You mentioned in the run reestablishing the line of scrimmage. So this next clip, take us through what you see with this.
Well, here's a great. So again, you're going to see them. They are all upfield, very very fast. So as you see that line of scrimmage, that's where it starts. And my big point on this one is just look at the line, the green line is for the line of scrimmage, and then look where the play is being made, and look how many Eagles defenders are back there. And the reason that they're doing that is because they've decided that regardless of the down and distance, they're going to play forward. So they get on the shoulders of the offensive linemen, the shoulders of the running backs, the shoulders of the tight ends, and they just constantly are pushing the gap, and they're pushing the gap backwards. And these linebackers all run downhill because they know the defensive linemen are going to be where they're supposed to be. So regardless of the responsibility, they're just all downhill. It's very fun to watch. It's like I said, the term my dad always says, your hair. They're playing with their hair on fire. They're all dying to get to the football. They want to be the guy who makes the tackle. They celebrate each other. It's really fun to watch. Okay,
so and again, that's 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage on a run play where they've reestablished the line of scrimmage. The other thing that we know from Jim Schwartz, he's going to dictate things. He's not going to let the offense dictate it. Take us through what you see in this next clip.
You're going to get a fourth down here. And the reason I like this clip is that you're going to get a 4th and 1 here. And now a lot of times on 4th and 1, teams do different things. Well, Jim Schwartz is he's not going to wait. And the term you use, dictate, he's going to decide what's going to happen. And he does a really good job of allowing the linebackers and the linemen, they all play. So you hear the term team defense. This is what it means. So the front, they're going to show an 8-man front here, and they're going to bring 5. They're going to bring 5, which is going to put all the offensive linemen in a one-on-one with somebody. Then they're going to press the corners and the safeties, which are going to make them throw over the top. And the percentage of throwing over the top as compared to a slant route or a high route, the percentage is much lower. And he's going to make the quarterback make a quick read, and he's going to decide what's going to happen. He's not waiting for anything. They play man coverage. If you watch their film, they play man coverage against good receivers. They challenge their guys. He gives his guys a lot of insurance that he trusts them. And this is a great look. They're going to show 8. They're going to bring 5. They're going to crumble out of scrimmage. They're going to make you make a quick decision. And quick decisions at all levels of football are usually not good decisions. So he just does this really well. This is a great clip of what the Browns fans are going to see. They're going to see 4 and 5 and 6-man pressures, but you're going to see 6 people. You're going to see 6 to 8 people at the line of scrimmage. The offensive linemen have to account for all those guys. And then he's probably only going to bring 4 or 5 most of the time, but you don't know where they're coming. And regardless of who's coming, they're all going to be coming fast. And that's that simplicity of playing fast, having all 3 levels on the same those defensive backs know pressure's coming, and they know that their defensive line's going to create pressure, so they're gonna play man, and they know the ball's coming out fast. So they do this very well. They're all in sync. They're all in unison, and that's why this was such a good defense. Because there's some good names on this defense, but there's some really good names on the Browns defense. This defense plays with an attitude, and that's what the Browns need. They need an attitude and an identity.
So the versatility that we always talk about that Jim Schwartz likes is important, because if you're showing 8, the guys have to be able to come. They also have to be able to drop if they're going to be able to, correct?
Yeah, and if you look at the guys they've got now, so they got Oko Rampo. Myles Garrett can do just about anything athletically. So even at times, because they'll slide protection to him. But if you look at Ladarius Smith has been in coverage a bunch. Those D tackles are going to be guys who are going to step the edge. They're going to step the inside edge, I like to say. They're going to make people double them. You're right. So they're going to bring 4 over 3 to one side, or 3 over 2 to another side. That means the other side, that simulated pressure the NFL likes to use. So they're going to simulate bringing 6 or 7, 8 people, but most of the time they're just bringing 4 or 5. But it's the job of the offense is to decide who those 5 are, and it's really hard to do because of that versatility, to be able to cover, being able to come off the edge. Ladarius Smith can play inside of the 3 technique, so now you cover the nose. You got Smith at the 3 technique, Myles Garrett at the 5 technique. That's a really hard thing to block. Not to mention that the 1 technique that you're doubling is Tomlinson, who's really, really good. And then the other guy is probably going to be Oko Rampo, who has turned himself into a great speed rusher. So they have a lot of versatility, a lot of guys who can do different things. And that's what makes this defense so good. You get these secondary guys who are going to have to play linebacker. Delpit can do that. You need a guy who can play free safety. Juan Thornhill can do that. And there are so many similarities between what they're trying to do personnel-wise with their defense now and what Schwartz did in 2017.
And that 2017 team won the Super Bowl, so that's kind of the overriding theme and goal of what you want this defense to be. Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, as always, really good film analysis and breakdown. Make sure you check him out, cleveland.com, as well as The Plain Dealer. We continue talking Browns. We're going to take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Brad Ward joins us, Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, as well as the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Brad, as always, appreciate the time. So I know you wrote an article, Things I Think I Know About the Browns, and one of the points you put, Jim Schwartz will provide a much-needed identity to this defense. We just finished up a little bit of a segment where you kind of see the aggressive attacking style of defense Schwartz had in 2017 with the Eagles, expecting that, and boy, is that a much-needed thing. This Browns defense has had talent, but not an identity for a couple of years.
Yeah, 100%. And, not only the aggressive in nature by scheme, but also in a mentality way. Like they need to take on the mentality of their coach. And I think that'll naturally happen here, as we've already seen, Tomlinson talk about it at length, and Rodney McLeod talk about it at length at post mandatory minicamp about the difference, in the accountability and how loud he is and how fast things are and how he's constantly encouraging guys to just play fast and in your face. And Schwartz talked about the physicality that'll take place in training camp and how he hasn't been able to get into that because, this is, mandatory minicamp is kind of a glorified passing camp, but they will, I believe that, after hearing the players and, I know your last segment was on the attacking scheme with the Eagles, all of that combined into a mentality as well, I think is so much needed with this defense, with this young talent. I mean, they've got all the energy and talent in the world, and they just need to be able to get in your face and let you know about it and provide a defense that we can really be proud of as Browns fans,
Yeah, and a defense like that, it gets to be like a snowball rolling downhill. It builds on itself.
Absolutely. Momentum is so key here, right? One good play leads to another, and them all encouraging each other if they're on the same page, which was a huge problem last year. So I look forward to that, for them taking on his personality.
Which player or players are you most anxious to see play in this Jim Schwartz defense with that kind of style?
I am, I guess, most anxious I don't know if it's a concern. I'm just anxious to see how the linebacker depth looks, right? So I feel fine about Anthony Walker as long as he's healthy. And, of course, JOK, right? But my concern is after that. So when guys like Jacob Phillips and, of course, Tony Fields are forced into action here before, we're waiting on Sione Takitaki. When will he be ready? If Fields and Phillips are forced into action, is there enough of a difference, or has Schwartz, pushed on them enough of a change that we see them develop as players more than what we saw last year, right? Like, a lot of this defense, as you probably saw in the attacking stuff, is they rely a lot on filling in behind these defensive tackles with good linebacker play, right, to support the run. And I hope Tony Fields and Jacob Phillips is enough. You know what I mean? Depth-wise, because at times they've really struggled. And that's where I have my most anxiety, I think.
Who do you think is set to have a big year in this defense? Who do you think this defense kind of unleashes?
Well, I think for sure Dalvin Tomlinson will have a big year, but I also really, really hope, and we've said this before, but I actually think there is something that we can, tangible, that we can point at and say that Jordan Elliott could really make because he's being asked to do something completely different than he's been asked to do before, less two-gapping, more just getting up the field and disrupting, which he kind of started to do last year and flashed a little bit with. So really hoping that Jordan Elliott is the guy that I think could be a different guy in this defense.
All right, also from the story you did on the Orange and Brown Report, things I think I know about the Browns defense or about the Browns. Healthy Maurice Hurst could fill a key role. Take us through that. And Hurst is a guy that when he has been healthy, he's been a productive NFL defensive lineman.
Very talented guy. If you on my Twitter timeline, I have his rookie highlights up. But, I think this guy if he could just stay healthy and in this scheme, and he's actually played in this scheme before, because the thing that kind of pointed this out to me was that Tomlinson was talking at length about how he kept saying Mo Hurst is such a technician, and he was teaching us all this stuff about getting upfield and, going through the transcripts post minicamp. And Tomlinson was talking a lot about Hurst and a lot about what a help he was as a technician along the defensive line in what is a little bit of a new scheme to everybody up front in some of their games and stunts they're doing, and how helpful Hurst was. If he could just stay healthy and fill that fourth defensive tackle role, boy, that would make a huge difference for this defense.
Are there any areas you think the Browns try to upgrade on defense? Or let's open it up. Is Andrew Berry done, or do you think he tries to bring somebody in on a low price kind of incentive driven contract?
I don't think he's done. There's enough money out there, and they've gone far enough, right? Like, what's the point to hold back now, right? Like, you push all in. So I'll be interesting to see what they determined after minicamp. So you've got that 6-week period now. So do they feel like they need a veteran running back? Do they feel like they really need to be in on DeAndre Hopkins? I doubt it. On the defensive side of the ball, Matt Ioannidis, Shelby Harris, and Ndamukong Suh has been linked to the Browns because, Richardson Jim Washburn is consulting with the Browns, right? And there's a little bit of a link there to Ndamukong Suh. Now, he didn't come in until halfway through the season last year. So we'll see how that goes. But I feel like they are most likely to add on the defensive side of the ball and probably on the interior defensive line. Like, really shore that up, right? And I think that if they make a move, it's because the biggest difference I think you can make from, player X to player Y is probably from one of those guys on the line now to like a Matt Ioannidis. Like, your WAR would go up significantly in a move like that. You know what I mean? So I think that would make the most sense. I also think keep an eye on, cuts are different this year, Dave.
Yep.
There's going to be 1,000 players cut all at once potentially, and after that last preseason game. So keep an eye on maybe adding a linebacker there that squirts free, into free agency or waivers or whatever. Or I think you could see some haggling with late round draft picks to try to get, circumvent that waivers process that goes on when those guys become free. If they think a player is going to be cut and they think they can make their linebacker room better, maybe they trade a late round pick to acquire them before they get out onto the in that waivers process, which who knows how that goes.
Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, as well as the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, and I are going to step aside, take one more timeout. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about the offense, plus who are some of the Browns' best players in the 21st century. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, as well as the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. This one from Chris Sims, NBC Sports Unbuttoned. Best 21st century non-quarterbacks for the Cleveland Browns.
What do you think? I think the more I sit here and talk about it, the more I think Nick Chubb should be it.
So if we're going to put out of three, Joe Hayden, Josh Cribbs, and Nick Chubb, you would go Nick Chubb? Or do you think? Or none, or two.
I feel like I would go Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb over Joe Hayden and Josh Cribbs.
I think so. I mean, like you said, Joe Hayden, it's 7 years. Nick Chubb, we're here at 6 years already. And it's 5 of them were like special. It's like special. Like where we're going, hey, is Nick Chubb the best running back in the game? You're asking me that question like the last 3 years straight at the end of the season. So I think it's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 5 years.
Five good years, 4 Pro Bowls for him. Yes. And if you are a Browns fan and really want Joe Hayden or Josh Cribbs, and you have a really good argument,
Yeah, then please. We're not saying
throw it at us.
this is set in stone.
We could be convinced on this one.
Exactly right.
But those are the 5: Nick Chubb, Joe Thomas, Joel Bitonio, Alex Mack, and Myles Garrett.
Cool.
That was a depressing list for the best players. And it's nothing against Joe Thomas, Joel Bitonio, Alex Mack, Myles Garrett, and Nick Chubb. But we had a kicker on that list. I mean, and you could have put quarterbacks in there and you probably still wouldn't change the 5. That's how much
it wouldn't have changed anything, I don't think. No, it is a rough list. The guy that I thought of, and I know they were talking about longevity there, but the first name that jumps out at me is like, man, if they could just, if you could just box up Josh Gordon's 1 year, like, right, like throw him on there, like, because he was just so fantastic in one season that it feels like he needs to be recognized. That's tough. It's a tough list. Yeah, Phil Dawson on there. I can't really complain with their choices, to be honest.
No, it's disappointing.
Yeah.
It shows you how much. As a franchise, that they've struggled since, in the 21st century. All right, back to your article, things I think I know about the Browns. Wide receiver depth. And this one's interesting. Jalen Darden, David Bell. Different styles. Andrew Berry likes his draft picks. Just your thoughts here.
Yeah, so it kind of brought to the forefront by, Zach Jackson and The Athletic saying that he thought that David Bell would get cut and that Jalen Darden was a potential dark horse to make the roster. Listen, I find it really hard to believe that Andrew Berry would part ways with David Bell, a top 100 pick, 1 year after drafting him. But, maybe that's where they're at. And, the thing with Darden and Bell is, first of all, you got to determine how many are they going to keep at wide receiver. Because if they keep 7, I think they both probably make it, to be honest, Dave. But if they keep 6, then you got a real battle on your hands between Bell and Darden. I do think Bell gets the edge just because of the draft capital invested in him, right? And before, in years prior, maybe that speed that Darden provides. And the return ability that he adds, because that makes him more valuable, right? Would play a factor, but I think he becomes a little redundant because of the additions of the 2 wide receivers, Elijah Moore and Goodwin, right? So with those guys in there, the speed may be a little bit redundant, and I don't think you want to give up on a guy like David Bell, who, by metrics that were sent out, was open a lot as a rookie. He's not a huge physically athletic, sudden and twitchy guy by any stretch of the imagination, or really fast, but he has a lot of nuance to his game, and he was a production monster, in college. So I'm not ready to give up on him yet.
Yeah, I'm with you. It'll be that whole wide receiving room is going to be an interesting thing to watch. All right, this one is an interesting question as well. Can Jedrick Wills still mature into the player that everybody hoped he would be when they took him 10th overall?
Yeah, this is he is a conundrum or an enigma, right? I wrote in the article, we always talk about him like the effort stuff and does he love the game and the body language. But surely the coaches see this, and surely it's been shown to him before. We're not discovering something new that they don't recognize in the building. The question is, why haven't they been able to get him to change, right? Or show improvement with the body language and the pouting on the field and the effort stuff. And then at the same time, he's played through injury, right? Which is kind of a culture that was instilled by J.C. Tretter, and a lot of the guys have followed suit on that offensive line. They just feel like they need to play injured. But we're coming up on a critical time for him, right? So he knows he has his 5th-year option exercised, but this is all about his payday of a lifetime, right? Coming up. If you really wanted to hold him accountable, you have to be intentional about having a backup that can go out on the field and not hurt the team, or else he basically has you, right? Like, and the way that you can hold him accountable is if you had a DeJuan Jones ready to go or a James Hudson ready to go, and there was no fall off. Until you have that, you can't really hold him accountable to the effort stuff and the other stuff like that, because you can't hurt the team, right, at the same time. So it's really it's a strange situation. He's certainly aware of his issues. Feels like a maturity thing, big time, Dave. Can they turn that around in time to, and then can you trust that turnaround? Because how often do we see guys play well when the contract's on the line or in a contract year and then regress back to their old habits, right? So it's really a tricky situation with him.
Yep, and they got to make a decision. That he's got 2 years to prove he belongs. So we'll see how that goes. Brad Ward, as always, great stuff. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Brad.
You're the best, Dave. Thank you so much for having me.
Brad Ward, make sure you check him out. Orange and Brown Report, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, always really good stuff. Each week, in conjunction with the Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program, we recognize role model students from somewhere across the state of Ohio. Today, we head to Aurora High School to meet McKenna Metzger, a junior at Aurora, one of the top softball players in the state, getting it done in the classroom as well. McKenna Metzger, the Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program's shining star. Aurora junior McKenna Metzger is an imposing figure for the Greenmen on the softball field. In the circles, she's been dominant, a strikeout machine. At the plate, she's been a force, a power hitter, hitting almost 600. Metzger is just playing with a ton of confidence.
It's so huge in the sport of softball because it's like based around failure, and I think that's something I've also been like really focused on, because sometimes I do like overthink things and I put a lot of pressure on myself. So I think I'm trying to like move past that, and if you have a bad game, it's a bad game. You have to just move on, and I think that also like led me to just like go up to the plate and stay calm and just do my best. McKenna's best has been awfully good by any standards. She threw a perfect game earlier this year against Copley, recording 11 strikeouts in a 10-0 six-inning win. I never really knew like what the rules of a perfect game was, but I remember coming in the fourth inning, I was like, I don't think anyone's gotten on base, and I went to my teammate Layla and I was like, I have to tell you something, and then I was like, no, I can't tell you. I was like, I don't want to jinx it, so I didn't tell her, and she was so mad at me. But then at the end of the game, you're like, you threw a perfect game, and I was like, that's what I was going to tell you. So it was kind of funny because like we don't talk about it anymore in the dugout because we don't want to jinx it. The success is no surprise. Metzger works hard year-round to maximize her talents, and that work is paying off in all facets of the game. Power. I think I'm obviously pretty tall, so I try to get in the weight room as much as I did like this preseason, and I think honestly I've just been hitting the ball harder than I ever have, and that's been resulting to like home runs and doubles and even just singles that get to the infield. Even though Metzger has another year of high school remaining, she was being recruited by a number of Division I programs, and she committed early to continue her education in softball at Kent State University. The programs of the softball team, it's just great. Like I've already met a lot of the players and I just love them like all. And the coaches have like given me such a huge opportunity to go out there and play. And also just like the school itself, like they say like you feel it when you feel it, and like you definitely do. Because I got to go to a lot of schools, which I was lucky to do, but it just definitely felt like home. As good as Metzger is on the field, she may be even better in the classroom. McKenna carries a 4.2 GPA in accelerated classes. It's just as important to me as my sports are. I try and work as hard in the classroom as I can because obviously that has helped me get the scholarship that I did at Kent State. And again, like I'm a perfectionist, so I'm like also hard on myself in the classroom just as hard as I am on the field. And I think I've just like had that motivation in me. And McKenna has a pretty good idea of what she wants to study in college. I've always been a math and science girl. But also like ASL, I just started and I actually really enjoy it. For a while, I was thinking sports medicine. I wasn't sure like what I wanted to do with it, but also recently I've been thinking about like speech pathology because I am in ASL class here in the school and I just really love it. So I think if I like majored in speech pathology and minored in ASL, that would be really cool. It's safe to assume that McKenna Metzger will attack her studies with the same intensity that's made her one of the area's best softball players.
If you know a student who deserves recognition, we want to hear about them, and you can nominate them completely online. Go to OhioLottery.com. Find the About section. Click on Partners in Education. There you will see links to nomination forms. Nominate that student as an academic all-star, and they could end up being featured as our next shining star. Well done, McKenna Metzger. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock on Sports for CLE.